back for another Noob Speara podcast episode today. Badass and frothing past 50. It's Lisa Ferrier Rafkin. Lisa, super cool. She loves ocean swimming, longboarding, and scuba diving. Currently holds multiple world records in women's spearfishing. She teaches children how to spearfish. Loves seeing the light in their eyes as they learn about the ocean. I really enjoyed today's episode. Lisa is, I don't think she even started until into her 50s, and she's super cool. I love this. You can hear how much I enjoy this in the episode. She's a super cool woman. Before we get there, I want to get into a couple of quick shout outs. The Wellington Spearo's crew have lost a member of their tribe. The Ben unfortunately left behind a wife and 5 kids. He died doing what he loved, chasing kaimoana in the oceans around Wellington, and it's a real sad loss to the spearing community. Seemed like a really just nice fella. Yeah, terrible news. Be safe out there, guys. Hey, a couple of reviews for 99 Tips to Get Better at Spearfishing, the audiobook. Check that out on Audible. If you go to noobspeara.com/Audible, you should be able to get a free trial of Audible and download the book for free. And yeah, check that out at noobspeara.com/Audible. But Anonymous says, great tips for hunting and diving. I love listening to this book. I love Noob Speara podcast too. We'll listen to this again and again. Another one said, great guide to spearing. I wish I knew these tips when starting out. Great refresher and love to support the guys. Well done. Great product, great podcast. So check that out, noobspeara.com/Audible. I think just reading it, I may have actually read that before, but anyway. Check it out. Hey, 99 Spear Recipes is jeepers, it's a huge project going along in the background. I just want to thank everyone that submitted recipes. I've got a huge volunteer editing and proofreading team. Those guys are just smashing through it. We're chunking through it. We've got about a month or 5 weeks to go until our editing deadline, and then we go to design. And I've got a fantastic designer from Sydney putting this book together. I'm really excited about this, guys. 99 Spear Recipes. We should have the crowdfunding campaign up early November, and you should be able to pledge and get a reward to commit to getting a copy of that. Should come sometime early in 2022. I want to thank everyone for their support and encouragement with 99 Spear Recipes. It's actionable, simple meals for the everyday diver. If you haven't heard of it, just wait till it comes out. I can't wait for it. But anyway, I didn't even introduce myself today. My name's Isaac, aka Shrek. I host the Noob Speara podcast. It's interviews with spearfishing experts, authorities, and characters from around the world. And today it's Lisa Ferrier Rafkin. Here we go. Let's get into that interview right now. Boom. Today's Noob Speara podcast is proudly brought to you in partnership with Adreno Spearfishing Supplies. For your next piece of spearfishing equipment, head to adreno.com.au. Flat rate shipping, Australia-wide, huge range of gear. Save $20 on every purchase over $200 when you use the code NoobSpearo. Better yet, drop into their Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne or Perth megastores. Use the code NoobSpearo to save online or in store. Check it out, adreno.com.au.
Are you a US-based diver? Great news! Today's show sponsor, Neptunics.com, have got a deal for you. Use the code NOOB10 to save 10% off anything and everything at Neptunics.com. Equipment you can rely on, solid gear that works. Even when you get all Limp Bizkit on it, you'll struggle to break stuff.
Sometimes in life you have those moments where you think, I've made it. Generally they get crushed fairly quickly, but today I knew I had made it with the Noob Speara podcast when I got an email from Manscaped. They make the best below-the-waist trimming gear you can imagine. They sent me a care package. I got the Lawnmower 4.0 as well as a pair of boxers and shirt, and absolutely stoked to welcome Manscaped to the Noob Speara podcast. So support for today's episode comes from them. Did I tell you that the Lawnmower 4.0 allow you to customize your trim through additional guard lengths with sizes from 1 to 4? Also, wireless charging. The new wireless charging system uses electromagnetic induction, which can help save battery length, lasting longer. I've used mine twice already. It's sitting in the drawer. Love it. Super lightweight. Pull it out. Bob's your uncle. You're all done in a couple of minutes. Tidy as, and I haven't charged it yet. So, and it's robust, light. I mean, what more do you need? Anyway, I want you to get hold of it. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code NoobSpearo, one word, at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use the code NoobSpearo, one word. Unlock your confidence. Always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Your balls will thank you. G'day, Noob Spirit community. I'm Bit Sport today. I'm speaking with Lisa Ferrier Rafkin, multiple women's world record holder, a passionate advocate for the sport. Lisa, welcome first of all, and tell me about the Sea of Love Foundation.
Oh, the Sea of Love Foundation. It's actually a foundation. I'm actually director for them. It's started by a girlfriend of mine, Kristen Smith, and it's really to help kids who have not had exposure to the ocean, either by taking them out on fishing boats or taking them out whale watching or doing surf classes and other things. So her oldest son actually worked on the fishing boat and she ended up losing him to a rollover crash about 4 or 5 years ago. So we started the foundation, and it's really because his passion was obviously being out on the boat and fishing and everything else. So
cool, very much in line with you. You love your spearfishing. You seem like a study of contrasts, Lisa. You're incredibly soft-hearted by day in your job, and yet you're a badass spearfisher woman by your days off. Is that a fair summary?
That is a fair summary.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
So my research didn't let me down. So I know you like ocean swimming, longboarding, scuba diving, and I believe you've got 8 women's world records. Is that correct?
I'm up to 15.
15. My research let me down.
15.
All right.
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of individual world records, but I mean, I've reset certain ones multiple times over. Okay. So I had a goal of surpassing 14 by the time I was 60 years old.
Wow.
And I just hit 15. I got 4 in the last 2 or 3 months.
Oh, wow.
I just reset the women's bluefin record.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay. What's your current world record for the bluefin?
For bluefin, it's 126.6.
Oh, wow. That's a considerable upgrade.
It's not quite as big. I mean, there's 8 million guys going after the guys' records. Yeah. So it's the first women's record over 100 pounds.
So cool. All right. So where are you based?
I'm based in San Clemente, California, and that's kind of I originally grew up all over, and to your point, I mean, I grew up around the ocean when we moved to California, and I was one of the first female lifeguards for Laguna Beach.
Oh wow!
So yeah, I started junior lifeguarding when I was 12, and then I was one of the first female lifeguards, one of 3, back in this will date me now, 1978.
Wow.
So had a long history with the ocean and a lot of respect for the ocean.
What draws you to the ocean?
Just everything, the solitude, the ability to be at one with it. When I'm underwater, just being able to cut everything else out, and in the sense of when you're hunting, it's really that solo thought of being looking for the bait, thinking about the current, looking for the fish, if you're blue water, if you're in a reef, just admiring everything around you. It's a big contrast for what I do for a living, because I deal with pretty much life and death type stuff during the day for my work. I deal with extreme burn victims. So when I'm out in the water, it gives me a chance just to be really in this place of ultimate solitude and peace.
There's quite a lot of spearos that are, this is my personal experience, there's a lot of spearos that are involved in people-intensive industries. I myself am one of those. I mean, your particular occupation, though, lends itself to, I mean, I'm sure it's rewarding, but it must take a toll on you emotionally and spiritually as well. Is spearfishing something that you use as a recovery sort of mechanism?
It is, absolutely. It is. I was last year during fire season in California, we were super, super, super busy. Didn't get in the water a whole lot. I think I was off for only about 4 or 5 days, multiple patients, because most of the burn victims, we do transplant work. They're 70, 80, 90% burned. And you get to know the families, and you get to know the patients, and you get to see them recover, and some don't recover and some pass. And so when you get out in the water, I mean, I think just part of being, it's just truly, it is the gratitude of being out, having the ability to be in the water, having the ability to be on the ocean, being able to just, put on your fins and drop in and just be in that whole other world. I think sometimes about my patients, sometimes when I'm under there and wish they could see it, but it's amazing.
Sometimes I'm sure you're taking that with you into your work, and they see that about you. What's your earliest sort of spearfishing memory?
So my earliest spearfishing memory, actually, my son started spearfishing a couple years before I started. So probably around 2013, somewhere in there. I really didn't start. Actually, I'm really only about 5-6 years in.
You're a late bloomer.
I am a very late bloomer. So at 58 years old, I didn't start till I was about 52, 53 years old.
Wow, that's incredible.
So I'm turning 59 this year. So yeah, very late bloomer. I was in the ocean my entire life, doing, body surfing, longboarding, doing all kinds of things, long distance ocean swimming. And my son started spearfishing, and then I actually went through a change of life and started dating, and then met a gentleman who was spearfishing. And it's kind of funny because my son was spearfishing and met this guy, and he goes, well, I spearfish too. And, of course, my son being protective was like, in his head thinking, sure you do, and as it was, it's, my current husband actually has been spearfishing since he was about 10, and,
wow.
over 50 years now. So,
wow. And how's your son going with it? So
he's doing really, really well. He actually came up your way. He did. He took time when he graduated from college, and he went up to spend a lot of time in Australia, some in New Zealand. Took classes from Judd. Did a lot of intensive free diving work. Got to dive the reef there. Really, really loved it.
What's your son's name?
It's Jack Ferrier.
Okay. All right. Cool.
So I'm sure Judd probably knows him. So yeah.
Yeah.
He's So I usually go by Lisa Ferrier. In the record books, I put Lisa Ferrier Rafkin, and it's my married name.
Yeah, cool. All right, so 7-8 years ago, you started your spearfishing. You're in your 50s. You're in your 50s, and you're starting a whole new sport. I know exactly what that's like because I went and started jiu-jitsu, a few years ago, and even though I was only in my late 30s, I still felt like this. You feel weird because you're older, and people perceive that you're older, so you're supposed to already be competent at something. So you're dealing with high level of levels of discomfort, and then battling that social pressure as well. Did you find that? How did you negotiate this?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, here I am in my mid 50s, and yes, I had a great mentor. I got married, so my husband's name is Rocky Rafkin, and I had the swimming, all the water capabilities, and I went out and he kind of threw me like a pair of fins and gave me a mask, and kind of like, was kind of waiting to see if I would have any interest at all. And pretty soon he was coming back to the boat way before me. I was out there for 2-3 hours but I also got, I got surrounded, which I didn't realize. All of his friends were people like, Johnny Warren, who developed some of the first triggers, Maury, Jay Rife, Jay and Jackie Rife were up in Jay passed recently, obviously, but, they were really good friends of ours. Wow. I had these incredible, Ian and Peter McConnell, because I ended up buying a house in Baja. I'm that addicted. So I had incredible people around me that were just had their bar set so high that it was sort of like, okay, well, I guess I'm supposed to be at this level.
So how did you negotiate it? That's even worse in some ways. When you jump in the water with people that are extremely competent, sometimes it doesn't sound like it had any bad negative effects on you, though. You must be a confident person.
Okay. Well, no. Well, yes, I am a confident person. But so to start over, I mean, I started off, true story, the very, very beginning. I had my very first gun, which I still own, which I absolutely love. And my secret is pink bands to attract fish. But it's the old Competitor 3, Rife Competitor 3. It was made in Jay's garage before it was even, there's no serial numbers. So, my husband took me out to Catalina Island and had like opali, like they weren't even live opali. They were dead opali. And he would like throw them up in the water and he'd be like, shoot, and then reload and shoot and reload. So,
wow.
I mean, I started like at ground zero.
Yep.
Just learning how to reload, learning safety, learning about breakaways. He kept me, which in retrospect, I look back now, and I think at the time I was like, I wanted to kind of like break loose, and he was shooting big, giant 60-pound like sea bass, and huge yellowtail and everything else, and I was still kind of like doing this reef stuff. Of course, opali went out the window after about 2 days. It's like, can't shoot those anymore. Okay, you're done. Like you have to shoot like real things because you don't shoot things that you can't eat, the whole ethical thing. But no, I went step by step. So I pretty much started reef, and then I didn't get my first blue water gun. I was looking back till it's 2021 till like 2016, the end of 2016.
Okay.
So yeah.
So you earned your stripes.
I did. I made sure really and truly, like I did, like go hunt calico, go hunt sheep's head, go like, go perfect, like make sure he started me out with really small stuff, basically to make sure I knew how to reload, how to shoot, how to be safe in the water. And I think that is one of the things that actually I'm really pretty passionate about is I've done some teaching with kids, and it's really, kind of, you can't jump in the water and go like, I want to go shoot a bluefin tuna.
Got to adjust those expectations.
Yeah. So I started out pretty slow, and then I still remember there was a trip we were coming back from one of the islands because we go to San Clemente Island or Catalina Island, and I didn't get a yellowtail again. And, it was more reef fish, and it's like, I don't know, 4 or 5 in the back cooler. And I just was like, I don't know about this sport, and I was pretty like, just really down on myself. And so he stopped at a patty, and he must have felt at that point, okay, I've got to like throw her like a bone here, like she can shoot a yellowtail. And so we stopped at a patty, and as patties go, I mean, this yellowtail like literally like came in front of me and parked right in front of me. Like you couldn't have missed it if you tried. So I still have a picture of my first, poor thing. It probably was only about, I don't know, 6 pounds. My first yellowtail.
That's all right.
Proudly displayed.
Describe for an international audience what a patty is. And I mean, I believe you call mahi-mahi patty melons as well, don't you?
Yeah, so patty is just basically, it's kelp that's basically clumped together. It's usually floating in, mid-ocean, between the islands. And, as I've learned, patties are usually, they hold bait underneath them. So it's basically a big mass of kelp that forms like a little tiny flotation area for kelp to congregate under it. Usually pelagic fish then say, oh, there's the refrigerator with, some of our bait, and we're going to go and see what's there. And so sometimes you go by patties, and, oftentimes, get up and you look in the glass, you look out the glass in the boat, and you look on the meter and you can see something, or, those usually a lot of times, if there's a bird on it, it's the key. If there's a bird on it, then it's usually a good patty.
Okay.
So I look to the bird.
What about the size of the patty? Like, what are we talking here? Like, how small patties okay, or bigger? I mean, how big do they get, and what do we?
Oh, I think small patties. I mean, you can have fish being held probably 5 feet in diameter.
Okay.
Bigger patios are obviously a little bit better because they're holding more bait underneath them.
Yep.
Sometimes you go up and I get all excited because there'll be like, 2, 3, or 4, white birds, because you look for those birds sitting on a patty, and you'll find out that there's nothing there. And then sometimes you'll come up to a patty that's 1.5 feet wide. And, I went to one, the most prolific one was, I still remember I jumped in the water, and it's a funny story because I had to learn also how to drive a boat and different things, but I jumped in the water and I went in, and my husband was still in the boat, and I went down and I shot a yellowtail, and I mean, there were hundreds, like hundreds. And I came back and I brought it back, and then the Dorado came in, and the mahi-mahi, and I, gotta remember these things are like in thousands of feet of water. And I'm like, drop the anchor, get in the water with me. He's like, we're at a patty.
Yeah. But you don't know what you don't know. What about, so you eye up this paddy. Say you spot it from maybe half a click away or something. I'm guessing you slowly motor up on it.
Yes, you slowly, in terms of the boat, yes, you
Yep.
slowly actually pretty much got the motor and you kind of glide up onto them.
Yeah.
And you can go by them like really, really slow and kind of see and look at your meter and see what's there. And then for the most part, you kind of go away, you kind of circle away from it, you get yourself geared up and ready to go. And then I usually just, or whoever, if we're switching off, swim into it, so you get your stuff ready, get on the swim step, and then, you get yourself probably a good 100 yards, 200 yards away from it, and you swim into it. And then, for the most part, the way, the bait's there, and you pretty much, sometimes if it's Dorado, obviously they're mahi-mahi, they're on the surface. But yellowtail, it's interesting because they will actually just like all of a sudden you'll be sitting under the patty or next to it, and you'll just see these fish just start to like just swell up underneath it. So it's pretty easy pickings. It's a good place to start.
Yeah, cool. Are you shooting fish like directly under the patty, or are you often shooting them like, I'm imagining, because it serves as a bit of a fad, like a fish aggregation device. You got the
Right.
bait, and then the pelagics are coming in and predating upon them. Are they coming to you when you're sort of maybe 20 yards off the patty, or are you swimming right up to it, or what's the sort of the general?
Yeah, they come up, and like Dorado will usually circle the patty. They'll go in a circular motion round and round, and then you can kind of take the time to look for the bowls and pick out the bowls and go after those. For yellowtail, it depends. For the most part, they're not very smart. They get really curious, and the ones under the patty, and they will literally, like a lot of times they'll swim and then they'll come like pretty much almost straight to you. Sometimes, if they're smaller fish, they just, like all smaller fish, they swim faster and they may stay under, but you're usually not right under the patty. It's peripheral.
The yellowtail here, when they're undersized, we call them rats. Do you guys have a name for them?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, right.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
They're a delicious eating fish. So
yeah, I actually, I shouldn't admit to this, but maybe you're going to edit this out. But yeah, so I actually I'm a much better AM than I am a diver.
Okay.
I'll just start by saying that. And so there was actually a really small one, and I used my little Competitor 3, and I hit it like completely straight midline, and the poor thing was probably like a pound.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't good. That was not part of the good ethical spearing that, like you eat, I got reprimanded for that one.
Well, I think I applaud your honesty, and I think it's definitely part of the learning curve. So, I mean, we're saying it's not good ethically. Why? Why isn't it good ethically? Like in your words and your understanding.
Oh, well, I mean, ethically, I mean, really, and I really do. When we go out, a lot of times, like, let's say we get, 4, 5, 6, 7 yellowtail in a weekend, and these fish are between 20 and 35 pounds, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't have it's ethically is making sure that they get on ice right away. Ethically is making sure they get cleaned right away. Ethically is really making sure that they get eaten and enjoyed by people who are going to actually eat them. And just never ever, you don't ever spear anything that you aren't going to make sure that is intended for consumption and for somebody to enjoy. And honestly, I mean, we kind of call it bad juju. So like, if you don't, we have like a whole list of friends we give our fish away to, and different people. And it's like, and if you don't, and if you let it go bad, I really do. It's almost like bad juju. It's like, It's not a good thing to, to go back out and ask the sea to give back to you, or to allow that fish to die for no reason.
Isn't it funny how, when you start spearfishing, your awareness of the ethical side of hunting and stuff becomes a lot more nuanced as the longer you do it. I think for me, like shooting undersized fish is, even though you're going to eat it, the problem is that fish hasn't had a chance to go through a few reproductive cycles and spawn. And and so yeah, like they still taste good, but you just haven't allowed it to live enough life to, to be sustainable because it's not been allowed to reach a breeding age. So, but
Well,
yeah,
yeah, like I actually ended up buying a house on the Sea of Cortez down outside of Cabo on East Cape. And, you go out some days and there's tons of cabria, and they call them leopard grouper and stuff. And, the big ones are great, but I mean, I've gone down as time's gone, time has now gone on. And so like you could have like your bumphead parrotfish and, your smaller, leopard groupers and stuff. And I'll go down and I'll just line up on them.
yeah.
But it's like you kind of go down just to line up on exercise and you come back up and, but to your point, they're not, it's just not the right thing to do.
Yeah. I think, I think when people start spearfishing, they go through that ethical part of the journey where you learn and you discover, and a lot of the time you do learn by doing the wrong thing. But as long as you only make those mistakes once or twice, and you learn and you develop and you grow, that's also part of it, because your ethics and stuff and your skill at picturing and understanding fish size and all that sort of stuff, they all grow along to it. So good on you for being honest. So. Great news, guys. Adam Stern has made his freedivingfamily.com courses available at a discount for the Noob Spearo community. If you get on freedivingfamily.com, use the code SPEARO, you'll get 20% off any course. There's a bunch of sick courses on there. There's an equalizing stage 1, there's an equalizing advanced techniques video there. They're two of my absolute favorites. If you have any problems with equalizing, go to freedivingfamily.com. Get Adam's course and use the code SPEARO to get 20% off any course. Check it out at freedivingfamily.com. It's a match. You and Shrek liked each other. Now you can go spearing together. Imagine Tinder for fishing. Welcome to the Fishing Trips app. Today's partner, the Fishing Trips app, available on iOS or Android. Find yourself a spearing buddy. There's no reason to go diving alone anymore. Download the Fishing Trips app today.
If your buddy had a blackout on your next spearfishing trip, think, what would the outcome of that be? Do you know how to revive someone from a blackout? Would you even be in a position to do something about it? Or would you be diving, chasing after a fish as your buddy sinks down to the bottom of the ocean? Do you know where most blackouts happen? Do you know what you can do to minimize your risk of having a blackout? My name is Ted Hardy, and I'm the founder of freedivingsafety.com. In my free online course, you will learn the truth about shallow water blackout, the myth of, I don't push myself, I know my limits, I'm in tune with my body, how to minimize your risk of having a blackout, and most importantly, how to save your buddy's life if they have one. Visit freedivingsafety.com to sign up for your free course today. Dive safe out there. It's just not even that hard.
So you said you're a better shot than you are a diver. So, but you predominantly free dive.
Yes.
What was learning that part of it like for you at 52? Like, what did you struggle with?
Well, I'll be honest. I didn't start out actually with a technical freediving class from the very beginning. So I kind of was relying just on my straight swimming skills and my ability to dive, and my endurance, working out and such. So, when I started out, I could get probably down to, quite frankly, my breath hold was very short. And literally like under a minute. And I was diving like 20, 30 feet, and then I finally obviously took a freediving class, and it was like, through a lot of people going, okay, like just everything, like how do you kick over? How do you like the whole relaxation? How do you breathe up? Especially what are your ratios, surface time versus dive time, and really like understanding that part of the sport in terms of how critically important it is for safety, I should have done it at the very, very beginning. And I probably waited, I'd say almost a year plus, and then once I did that, it vastly improved in terms of my ability to spear.
A lot of it's just those 1%ers too, isn't it? Like you say, like a duck dive, just getting that with decent form is huge for improving your dive time.
Oh, it's huge. I can still remember early on, one of the mentors, Jeff Richardson, who he's a captain on a boat down in Cabo, but he also He dives a lot. He probably is one of the biggest white sea bass divers, along with my husband, on the West Coast. And we were out and had the two of them with me, and he was watching me dive, and the same thing. He corrected me on my duck dive, and then the biggest thing, he was like, Lisa, he's like, you've got to make sure you tuck your head in. You guys, like, you got to keep your, like, my head was still like, I was looking down, I was looking up, like going down and up,
Yep. Streamlining.
So it's
another huge one.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Oh, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing some of those lessons. When's the first like hunt that you can remember where, because it doesn't even have to be a particularly good fish, but you're just proud of the way that you positioned yourself and kind of put yourself in the right spot to really hunt a fish? What's the first one you really remember?
Oh, I think early on out at San Clemente Island, we would go out to the backside, Salto Verde and some other places when there was still a lot of kelp back there. So it's like the backside of San Clemente Island off of California. And, it's really just being able to, I started putting it all together, like which way is the current going? Where's like looking at the kelp, where's like the point on the kelp where if the bait's obviously going to be at the front of where the current is coming from. So, you go up to the front of it, you find the bait, you position yourself, you make sure you're at the outer point, you make sure you're and it's having the patience for that blue water to be able to sit out there and wait. And I can still remember getting my first couple of really good size yellowtail, being out there and doing that. And it really, it is a lot of it just learning that whole thing of the whole fish sense of like finding the bait, knowing which way the current's going, knowing like, if there's no current in California or for our yellowtail, I mean, they're pretty tough to find. Sometimes you can have, some of the home guards and stuff will be really, really deep, even if there's no current. But for the most part, getting those first few yellowtail and having them come in, 2 at a time, 3 at a time, or spool at a time, and then being able to go down and really target them is just it's absolutely incredible. It's such a blast.
Did you have any problem with shot placement with some of those bigger yellowtail?
No, I mean, for me, it's interesting because Jay Rife actually helped me design. I actually have an Islander, but my Islander actually has an enclosed shaft and it's weighted. So, and it's got weights on both sides. And I also have extra rest tabs because I'm pretty short. I'm about 5'2".
Okay.
So in order for me to load my own gun, I have to hip load and then I have to chest load from the mid tabs.
Okay.
But, for that, once I finally got my good blue water gun, I mean, it was getting leveled out and placing, like really going after it. I mean, I will say, I mean, like I could still improve on my diving. I probably need to take some more free diving classes for sure, to get to deeper levels. But I think my placement, I think using that smaller gun for such a long time really helped me.
Yeah, righto.
Yeah.
Just forced you to be a bit smart and strategic with the way you took shots.
Well, yeah, because once you end up with a big gun that's got an enclosed, track and everything else that kind of shoots like a laser, and you've been using like a mid-handle little small gun, it makes you all that much more precise.
Yeah,
I mean, it was amazing the first time I shot with my bigger gun because it was like, oh no, this is how the rest of the world lives.
You raised another interesting point. Loading a spear gun can be really tough for slider framed people and obviously particularly women. Walk us through learning how to load a spear gun. It sounds like your husband Rocky he just made you keep doing it. So that's got to help.
Oh, yeah. So I mean, one of the things I will tell you in for the women in the sport. So there's this whole thing for women in the sport of and there's like an ethics. It's kind of like the ethics behind shooting, fish that you're going to eat. It's like if you're going to go out and spear, like I've always loaded my own gun. So what I did is I actually went and I took my shafts back to Rife and I had them add extra rest tabs in the middle. So for me, because my arm reach is so short, So if I go for a full pull, let's say, on a bigger gun, my arm reach literally is at a point where I can't even with a hip load go to like a full pull all the way to the back.
Yeah.
So what I'll go ahead and I actually have 2 extra rest tabs. So I do a hip load to those first ones, and then I'll chest load from there.
Yep.
So that I can load and reload in the water. And I think for women, there's a group of us who are pretty serious about it. It is extremely ethical, for those, we know certain people that, it's good. I want people, especially women, I want women to feel inspired that they can go out and they do it. And if it means it for a while that you can't really, that you need help loading your gun, but there are ways that you can, like I did, add extra rest tabs so that eventually you can become independent, and then you can be doing that on your own.
Yeah. The other thing is necessity is kind of the mother of all invention too. Like humans, whether they're perceived as not as strong or whatever, will learn, adapt, and overcome, but only if they're given the opportunity to do so. Sometimes the biggest favor, in my experience, you can do for someone is just to allow them to struggle for a bit.
Yes.
Like,
yes. No, that's true. And that's really, for me, it's, when I got my blue water, loading it. I ended up, buying a set of weights and doing weights every day. And, I spin and stuff because it's like, you've got to have that upper arm and that shoulder strength to be able to do that. And, and if you miss a shot in the water, you got to be able to reload. You can't go back to the boat and reload it like sitting on top of the ice chest. You got to be able to reload it in the water and do it efficiently. And usually 9 times out of 10, they start circling you while you're reloading, as you well know.
Just teasing you. And then you're always tempted to take that shot with one band loaded. And
is that not the truth?
Oh, 100%.
You're like, how fast can I just load one band all the way back, put on my slip tip and just like go for it?
Yeah. Oh, I won't run my shooting line properly. I've done all those silly things. And and it's just, you're better off just slowing down, aren't you? It's one of those times where you just slow down, do everything properly. The fish, they will or they won't be there, but either way, at least you'll be equipped to deal with them.
No, I recently did it. Because I've been doing a fair amount of bluefin lately in hunting, and you're sitting on the back of the boat, you got your fins on, you're looking for marks. There weren't even bruisers, and I can still remember I don't even know, like a month ago. I got so excited. I missed the first shot and I could see them all just circling, and I'm ready to come back up. And I completely just jerry-rigged and misloaded my gun entirely. It was just all wrong.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have shot any which way from sunshine.
Do you find that in general with spearfishing, it's like when you start to hunting, when you see the fish that you really want, the levels of excitement are just uncontainable. And then you've got to be extremely self-controlled, premeditated, and stay calm enough to execute on those opportunities that come in front of you. I find that one of the most difficult things about it, but also one of the most delightful things when it all works out.
Oh, I think you're absolutely, absolutely, absolutely correct. And like I said, I also dive down in Baja too. And I think, so for, yellowtail and different things, it's, going down, you can do things like wade, you can level out, you could hope they turn back on you. I'm pretty good. I'm pretty fast underwater, so I can get down kind of almost, I think, when you get behind them, you can almost kick fast enough that I think they almost kind of and they'll almost turn to give you a look, and they'll give you a side view, which is great.
That's a little bit of a trick too.
I was down in Baja, and I have yet to shoot a wahoo, and I went out on a boat, and I had a great captain, and he first day they came up, and I was so awestruck that I literally just completely whiffed the entire thing. I had everything going, and I was down there, and they came. This whole pack came up, 8 of them. And I literally was just in the water. And it was, to your point, it was such excitement and awe that it was rather than, and I had instruction, look away from them, don't chase them like, don't, and I mean, all that went out the door, I was like, I was going to dive on them and get them. And it was like, they just turned and went away. So.
Do you think that's another part of the appeal? It's like, like it's the missed opportunities that keep you coming back and keep you going back for the next thing, because it's like, you're always like, kind of like, you're stoked with what you've achieved and done, but you're always kind of like, I'd like to do that. I'd like to see another one of those. I'd like to really not bugger that up again,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Like for me, now I've seen, because a couple trips, I mean, I've seen now multiple wolf packs. And so for me, it's like, shooting that wahoo, because I've heard all these stories about how they, like you shoot them and they take off like at 8,000 miles an hour and then they drop off, and I'm just waiting for that kind of adrenaline rush and that opportunity to happen, So yeah, to your point, I think it is. It's in, I had in Baja, I shot a Dorado and the thing had to have been, it was huge. It was like 40 pounds. And I literally at that point, I was like, okay, relax, calm down. You got him. You got a good shot, yada, yada. Well, what I didn't do is I had a problem with my
shooting line.
Well, his shooting line. And long story short, he basically tore off my slip tip.
Yeah.
That's
a huge part of, I think, too, is like learning to play fish and shooting line tension. Like it's another thing that's only really taught through experience. It's like with Dorado in particular, like I've lost them too. It's or shot placement's super important with them. You really want to hit that big bony structure up near the head somewhere, and because they go ballistic when you shoot them. And they just tear off. But you have to keep pressure on the shooting line. You don't want too much on, but you also want enough on, and you don't want any slack in it as well. And I reckon that's a big part of the art of landing them successfully. What do you think?
Oh, I absolutely think so. I mean, because they're to your point. I mean, they go ballistic. They're on the surface for the most part. They're thrashing around. If your specter's bad at all, and or if you get a bad shot, I mean, their mission is to get themselves torn off of there, So you can't, you point, you can't leave them like too much line. You also don't want to like pull them in too quick so that you like have them tear off, but you can't it's not like you can sit there and leave them. Like I recently shot like a giant rooster and the thing was just so giant. I literally let itself tire itself out. You can't do that with Dorado, because they leave them long enough, you don't grab them by the tail, they're bye-bye.
They go, they jump out of the water. They do crazy stuff. Like that's a great way to get like tangled up in your own shooting line or rig line, whatever. Like, jeepers, they they test out like your team as well. Like if you got if there's three of you in the water and you're all diving, you're gonna get a tangle probably. And and it's a recipe for frustration.
They just go every which way from sunshine. I mean, your biggest it's kind of like your biggest concern is like where are you going, and like you're literally just trying to stay like out of your own line and like figure out where it is at the same time as bringing them in. So it's something else, until you've shot one that's really, really big and then goes psycho on you. You're like, oh my, I didn't expect this.
Dorado I've had a bit of experience with, and same with yellowtail. Bluefin tuna though, I've had zero experience. As a novice hunting bluefin, let's just say you're heading out, you Rocky, and you've got a noob in the boat with you. Never hunted bluefin before. How would you walk them through what they're going to do, like when you get on the fish?
When you get on the fish?
Yeah, like you found a school maybe.
Okay, so if so you're on the back of the boat and hit marks or whatever, and so you drop off. So you go down. I think the biggest thing is going down, making sure that you get down. A lot of times they'll come up to you. You're saying getting on the fish, but and when you come up, one of the key things is like if you're going to raise your gun up, is you want to go in the direction that they are circling. So you don't want to ever go with their lateral lines. You don't ever want to go kind of counterclockwise to the way that they're circling around you.
Okay.
And usually the bigger ones are actually obviously down a little bit deeper. So if I'm going to go dive, I'm going to go ahead and leave my gun like as close as I can to me. And I'm not going to really bring it up till I get to a certain depth where like some of the bigger ones are. Yeah. And then at that point, because the minute you raise your gun, like literally, like they have this like lateral line, and the whole school just they'll move out and away from you.
Yeah.
Because for the most part, I've only had once or twice where they come into me kind of like as a school, kind of like, like a yellowtail. They go circular. They cyclone you kind of. And if you keep your gun going with the direction with the school, then you get on them. And I think the biggest thing is the same thing. It's a soft fish. Got to use, shot placement is really, really, really important. The good news is their skin is tough, really tough. And so you definitely want to be using, like we only use 100-foot bungees with them.
Yep.
And a good slip tip. And then, for the most part, it's like, make sure that it's sort of like they get themselves anchored, and you let them, I've shot a few of mine, multiple of mine, and it kind of, you make sure your shot kind of settles, and you get yourself gathered, and you bring your gun back to the boat. And like most recent one, my bigger one, I mean, yes, the floats are starting to go away and you can't travel on the boat, but you got to then like collect yourself and get your breath up, and you have to really like start to think about like, okay, I have the fish, my 3 atmospheres pegged, I've got the other one, I'm going to start clipping it off, I'm going to be moving it out, and you've got to just really pace yourself. Because depending on the shot placement, I mean, you could be in the water for almost an hour, bring it up. I've had ones, I had a 50-some pounder that I brought up in like, I don't know, 15 minutes. I just had a really great placement on it, and hurt it really bad. And it, I thought it was much smaller. The most recent one that I just shot, I mean, I literally like just took my time. And so for somebody who's new, I'm like, take your time, get your gun put away, get back to the float, get your clip organized. And then the biggest thing is watch where your lines are. Make sure as you're pulling that fish up that you're looking to see where, like, if there's no current, like, are you getting wrapped? Like, is there bungee behind you? Make sure everything's in front of you. And if need be, you just continually kick away from it as you're pulling them up. And, you periodically stop and you make sure, because, those things unclip and you're wrapped in any which way from sunshine, and those things are they're going to take you down. Yeah.
So are you using a clutch setup?
I use a clutch setup. I use a clutch. So I have a regular float, and then I have my 3 atmosphere, and I have my clutch set up to my 3 atmosphere. So as I'm pulling my regular, whatever it is, 7 float, my regular one, as I'm pulling that one out, I'm moving the clutch all the way down, rather than, for me, again, because I'm in my 50s, my hand strength isn't as strong as probably some guys. So a lot of guys will use clips, and they'll go in and they'll clip it down, and they'll just clip it the whole way down. For me, I use a clutch, and it's much easier for me to go ahead and clutch it out. I still hang on to the clutch, but it is definitely easier than using a clip for me. So, and then you get them up to the shooting line, and then you get a good look at them, and go back and get your kill gun. And, and then that's even with that, it's like, for somebody who's new, it's like, when you get them up to your shooting line and you see that you have them, and they're probably tired at that point, but they're still moving around. I mean, for safety's sake and everything else, you got to like really look at that fish, see what kind of state they're in. Are they still fighting, and give yourself time to really breathe up and do a really good kill shot. Because if you don't, then bringing them all the way up to the surface is going to be quite precarious, because now you've got multiple shooting lines, multiple spears, multiple shafts out there, and it can be dangerous.
I like to swim up current, that way all the line naturally trails out behind you. But I haven't shot a bluefin. They're a diver, so generally they tombstone you. With some bigger fish I've shot, like, as soon as you start to swim down, maybe for that kill shot, as soon as they see you, it freaks them out, and they, again, even though they're exhausted, they'll tombstone you again. Do you get the same with these?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Or they'll start doing the circular motion. So, you're going down and you're going to go for a kill shot, and they're kind of in place, and they'll all of a sudden start swimming in a circle. And so you kind of have to, really take your time and make sure that you get a decent kill shot on them, because, if you rush it, and by that time, by that time too, your adrenaline, the whole thing is what you talked about earlier. It's that balance between keeping yourself calm, pacing yourself, going back into kind of that serene mode of like, okay, I'm going to just bring this fish up. I'm going to be really thoughtful about it. And then the adrenaline on the other side is like, oh my God, I got this fish. I'm like, like you're so excited,
Yeah.
So you have to like stop long enough and be like, okay, like this is my kill shot. I'm going to like really take my time and do this the right way. It doesn't, I love to say that works perfectly every time. It doesn't, but that's certainly the goal.
Yeah. No, it's interesting, and I think sometimes it's good just to think through it systematically. It's like you just map out your process, so you start to try and have a system in your own mind, at least, for how you deal with these things. But I think experience teaches you that anyway. But sometimes for people that don't have that experience, just giving them that process of how you walk through and think about that process is enough to give them a sense of it. That way they don't have to make as many mistakes, maybe wound as many fish and lose as many fish as we do, or when they start out. So it's good.
Hey Shrek, Jeremy here, man. I'm back. Just wanted to say the podcast is growing from strength to strength, my friend. Hoorah, man. I just wanted to say thank you for your continual support from the Noob Spearo listeners, subscribing, reading, writing, and submitting kick-ass spearfishing adventures from all over the planet. Your listeners kick ass, and Shrek, my friend, so do you. All you guys, come check out the next edition of Spearing Magazine at spearingmagazine.com. Jeremy out.
Are you in the market for a new spear gun? Killshot Spear Guns has got blue water wahoo tuna guns, open track spear guns, enclosed track spear guns, rear handle enclosed tracks. Check them out at killshotspearguns.com. Even better, I've got some good news for you. You can save $30 on any Killshot Spear Gun at killshotspearguns.com. Use the code NOOB. If you're in store, just say, crikey, mate, or say Shrek from the Noob Spearo sent you, and you'll save $30. Ed Martin at killshotspearguns.com. Check them out. Got a sweet deal for you today, guys. Go to freedivingfamily.com and learn from Adam Stern and a select team of experts on different disciplines. There's Frenzel, advanced Frenzel and hands-free equalization, mouthful, deep Frenzel equalization, bi-finning essentials. These are courses that will give you the 1% that will allow you to improve. Use the code SPEARO to get 20% off any course at freedivingfamily.com. Again, that's the code SPEARO to get 20% off at freedivingfamily.com. Thanks, Adam and team. Love it. Spearo, 20% off. Boom. What about tough situations? Have you had any close calls, scary stuff, and what did you learn from it?
Well, different things. I learned actually one of the things, and is I went out to a place, and my husband was not right next to me, and was a huge school of yellowtail came running through, and they were a good part of them were home guards. I mean, they were big, and he was a good ways away from me back towards the boat, and I went ahead and I shot one, and it, because of the way they were coming up off of this reef, it's called Arch Reef, I didn't, as much as I'd love to say I stoned it, I didn't. And when they're like 35 pounds, I mean, their yellowtail are just really strong. And it was the first time ever I got wrapped. I mean, first and only time, but I got wrapped. So I had it brought in, and I was bringing it in, and I grabbed its tail, and I went to go and bear hug it and, grab it for the gills, and it went crazy on me. And I did not have, to your point, safety, having a diver right next to you. And it started going all the way around me. And my husband was a good, couple hundred yards from me. And, the school was still right there. And, it may, the temptation may be there when things come through, but making sure that you have somebody spotting you and making sure that there's somebody there, that if you get into trouble, was definitely what I learned from it, because that was scarier than I mean, I literally was like, came back to the boat, like shaking and was crying.
Yeah.
I managed to, what was interesting about it, is actually my Spectra went on that one. And, it wasn't that old of a Spectra. So I don't even know how that happened, but I was like happy as a clam that thing got loose. Cause it would have been a really bad situation.
Wow.
So, yeah, so that, and then of course there's always, I think you folks do with a lot more out there, sharks. We just recently had,
You just get the big scary ones. Okay.
well, we just had an incident with the Mako. So I actually, for the first time ever, like we've had instances with whites where, you see them and they kind of come up and over, or they'll, we had one that parked in front of us once. The lesson was, you don't leave your yellowtail or any of your fish on the back of your floats. You take them back to the boat right away, because, after you kill 2 or 3 of them, they start to smell blood. But I was swimming and we were diving together, and all of a sudden I saw this 300-pound, 400-pound Mako
Wow.
come about 50 miles an hour. And I mean, straight up from the bottom with its mouth open, straight at my husband. And I'm looking over, and I was just in my head, I'm thinking, he's going to eat one of us. It was like, I'm not like, it's kind of like when you dive, it's like you're part of the food chain, and you really have to give up that sort of fear of sharks. You really do. That I will tell you, seeing it, like, you're not going to get away. Like, if they've decided they're going to come from the bottom, they're coming up at you. I mean, seeing it in that kind of mode. What I didn't know was, because we have this huge biomass of bluefin tuna off of California, is an 80-pound bluefin apparently had run into my husband right beforehand and was trying to apparently obviously hide from the Mako, bumped his weight belt off. Well, I missed that whole part of the story because I wasn't looking. So all I saw was this Mako coming up at him. So, so it was, there's sometimes there's some scary stuff. I mean, we've had a couple instances with whites and different things, but I think, for the most part, I mean, I don't think, it's being aware, going back to back, say with 360-degree view, but I don't think for the most part.
You can't control it all the time.
Yeah, you can't control it. And I don't, there was once we were off the island and there was, a whole big school and we had an incident, and it was kind of like I sat on the swim step and I was like, so I either have a choice of going back in the water and kind of letting this go and realizing that the chances are pretty much near to none. And that was kind of that, and you kind of have to let go of it. So, yeah.
Mako sharks, I think, are in some ways the scariest of all the sharks, just from sheer speed. Like, I've watched some HD videos out the back of, like, fishing boats that have got lures and teasers out the back, and you watch what a Mako is physically capable of, and there's nothing else like them in the water. They're a crazy, crazy animal, what they're capable of. Like, in terms of short-term, like bursts of speed over, relatively short distance, like 100 or 200 yards, like phenomenal. And there's no way you can even move in time to respond to something like that.
Yeah, I mean, if they want you, they're going to get you. I mean, I think that top speed is, I looked it up, was like between 40 and 60 miles an hour. Yeah. And this thing was coming up from the bottom at that speed, because it came up and its mouth was open. And I mean, it came out of the water, and it was just, I mean, it was for a brief, it was kind of like, and then it went back down. And so in my mind, now it wasn't, we didn't have viz all the way to the bottom. So they hunt, as and they come up from the bottom again. So, I'm thinking in my head, it was kind of like, okay, I got to get back to the boat. But like, if that's what they want, you're not going to swim fast enough to get away from that.
50 miles an hour versus, I think, maybe flat out we're 5 miles an hour, absolutely flat out. There's not a chance.
Yeah, so it was interesting. I've seen lots and lots of sharks, but not anything in full attack mode.
Yeah, wow. That's cool. I mean, it's cool. Yeah. It's scary, but it's cool.
No, it actually,
you're all good, so it's cool. Yeah.
It was. It actually, in retrospect, it really was cool. It was kind of a National Geographic moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like one of those times when you see, black sea bass and as you know, protected,
Yeah.
and you get to go down and you get to pet them, That's
Yeah.
kind of a different cool.
They grow huge too, your black sea bass, don't they?
Oh, they're giant. They're giant. They're like hundreds and hundreds of pounds. And they'll go through, near the kelp and stuff with you're doing white sea bass hunting, and they'll come cruising through, and they have these giant eyes, and I equate it to like having, like, it's like a Saint Bernard.
Yeah.
So and you literally, I mean, I've dove down, and you can like literally like touch them, and they're pretty friendly.
Yeah.
So
Some people wonder, I think, about spearfishing, how we can hold animals in such high regard and yet still hunt them and eat them. Like people that watch like my octopus teacher are talking about this a bit lately because of some of the media, but like I can still hold an octopus in really high regard and yet enjoy eating one. And I think just because you hold it in high regard and you even attach affection towards these animals still doesn't mean, doesn't mean that you don't hunt them. It just means that you do it in an informed manner. Because I think sometimes you talk to vegans, and I'm not picking on vegans here, but it's like they think that their lifestyle means that nothing ever dies. And it's like, well, it doesn't matter who you are and what you eat. If you're alive, something's dying so that you can live. We just do it intentionally with full knowledge of what we're doing, and we take responsibility for it.
Well, and if you think about it, it's really in terms of the carbon footprint and everything else that goes into, shooting your own food and bringing it in, So when I'm down in Baja, a lot of the times, I'll shoot certain fish, and some I'll give to, some of the local people, and keep some for ourselves. I mean, I think, what is the statistics? It's like something like X number of gallons, like 300 gallons of water or some crazy number, is needed for one cow or something. And I mean, so I think spearfishing in a really ethical way is, really just, it's probably one of the most primitive and I think one of the more proper ways, unless you are vegan, to eat. I think the whole fishing thing, people, I think they don't understand it completely. And I think the other part of it is you got, people who are, they're throwing nets, and, they're doing seiners and stuff are going out. And I mean, that's really, a lot of the problem of our ecosystem, is you got people who are changing the ecosystem by, really just depleting our ocean of like a lot of its natural resources through unethical, but maybe legal. But I mean, it's really kind of unethical fishing in terms of how you treat the environment.
Yeah, sometimes, there's big ethical questions with industrial size food gathering, whether it's agriculture or whether it's commercial fishing. I agree with you. The big questions that we all jostle with, and I think one of the joys of our sport is it's 100% selective. And it's hard, and you learn about it, and you go through that journey like we were talking about earlier too, about just learning about what you're shooting at the start. You definitely don't end up where you started, and it's a journey.
No.
And I think vegans and they sometimes miss out on that, and they don't have any understanding of that reality for hunters, both above and below the water. Equipment. I want to go to equipment just for a sec. So you're a rife girl, self-professed.
Yes.
What about wetsuits and stuff? Are you still rife hardcore, or what do you wear?
Honestly, for the most part, pretty much rife hardcore.
Okay.
I actually used a surf suit for the first 2-3 years.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to use a 2-piece suit. I used not a surf suit, but a scuba suit. I wanted a 1-piece suit, but then I didn't have a hood, and I eventually gave up on. I went actually to a custom suit and did a custom suit for a while, and then it had too much rubber, and it was great because it was all this Japanese. It was made out of great material, but it was like so much rubber. I felt like I was floating around like a balloon, and so I finally gave up, and I actually went to an actual rife suit.
Yeah.
I think for me, I mean, it's really I think there's a lot of really good gear that's out there in terms of different suits and different things. I know. Some of them now have come out with, women's, because we're built a little bit different, in terms of different curves and things. So, for the most part, I think things are progressing for that matter. But gear, I use that. I do not use a low volume mask. I actually use I hate to say it, a Scuba Pro mask, and it's got reflection on it. It just fits my face perfectly. I've tried 3 or 4 low volume masks that are, spent good money on those, and they fog on me or whatever else. I probably nose breathe too much or something. So and then
have you done the lighter trick? The lighter trick on the
I did.
On the mask?
Yeah.
Sometimes they need multiple treatments. I don't know, for whatever reason. Like some masks are just pricks and things like it. And when you get a mask conditioned, it's like and it works for you. You just never want to go with anything else. Like
no, you don't. I mean, I actually had one mask and a little bit was starting to leak, almost tiny bit through the nose a little bit, and I was like, I didn't want to let it go because I had this great low volume, but. They'd done the lighter thing like a couple times, and I'd done like the scrub, you scrub it with the brow, and you do that, you rinse it, and, then you use like the drops in it, and then the spray with it, and, and it literally was when I can still remember because I was using it, and it was one of my first times, last year, I guess, when it was bluefin diving. So I said, okay, I'm going to wear this low volume mask. I'm going to be able to get down deeper. It'll be good. And the thing just fogged up on me in my left eye, and the school comes in, and I just couldn't shoot for anything because I couldn't see, I couldn't focus on anything.
Oh, there's nothing worse. A fogging or a leaking mask, you might spend 5 minutes doing some super zen, really good breathe up, relaxing, everything's good. You dive down, you level off maybe 60 feet, and then you realize your mask's fogged up or you've got a leak in it. And that fish that comes in, you can't even see the bloody thing. You've just wasted 7 minutes of your life and a good opportunity because of some shit mask.
It's so true. I mean, I came up to the surface and I took the thing and I threw it off on the boat, and I'm like, give me back my scuba mask. At least I can see out of the dang thing.
Yeah.
It was crazy. And it was probably literally and these things were literally, they were like cows. I mean, it was they were all 150 plus.
Oh,
and the opportunity came, the opportunity left.
Do you ever do anything in a swimming pool? Because you can't generally, if you're doing freedive training or something, you don't take a spear gun in there, but quite often it's a good place to work on finning technique, and you can try out a new mask, and it's relatively risk free because you just swim a laps in a pool. There's no big fish that you're worried about. Have you done much of it?
No, I haven't. I did part of my free diving class, obviously, in the pool.
Yeah.
I know a lot of folks actually, the U.S. teams actually, they're doing a lot of finning and, just breath holding and stuff, just, doing laps going back and forth. Again, to your point, I mean, it is definitely something that's my goal is I'd like to become, I'd like to hit I'd like to be able to work comfortably, 60, 70 feet somewhere in there. Right now I can work comfortably, down to 40, 50, I'm not 100-foot diver, and I know that whole opportunity of what you can hunt. Granted, a lot of, at least in California, I know for you guys, it's a lot deeper. For us, most of the big fish, I mean, if you can get down to 50, 60 feet and you can, I guess I can even work even closer to 60, but, getting that extra depth I think is going to add a lot to just being able to hunt better, give you more time.
Comparison's a bit of the thief of joy too, isn't it? I was out the other day, I hadn't been out for 10 weeks, and I was diving with 2 guys, and I was flat out doing 1-minute dives. And then my mate, who also used to be a pretty good diver, it's funny, we call ourselves the mad crew, the middle-aged dad crew. We never get out anymore. So he was doing sort of 70, 80-second dives, and I'm just putting out times just for the sake of sharing the story. Not that it's any magic number that anyone needs to aspire to or anything like that. But and then the other dude we were diving with, he's a younger fella that's been diving a lot, and he's doing minute 45 easy. And we all just dove to our levels though. There wasn't any real funny business, and we all watched each other's backs. It was pretty good. Everyone was fairly experienced, so we knew how to work together. But my dive ability just felt awful after 10 weeks not in the water, and I just felt like shit. And if I compared myself to the others, or even where I used to be, I just felt dejected, despondent.
Right.
All those awful D words, disappointed. And, I don't know, but whether you compare yourself to your mates or, yourself when you're in your prime or whatever, and diving all the time, like either way, it's disappointing, isn't it? It's frustrating.
Oh, it is. I mean, I was out the other day and there were some younger guys. I mean, first of all, you talk about different obstacles. So it's kind of like, I'm probably, maybe I'm not quite old enough to be your mother, but, for a lot of the younger guys, I am, and it's like these guys, like they go down and they're laying on the bottom, like for like a minute and a half, 2 minutes,
Yeah.
and I'm going down and like, working at 60, 60 feet, for like a minute plus, at tops. And, they're down there like, like watching like YouTube videos. I don't know what they're doing. I'm like, you're down there long enough. You could shoot anything and everything that swims by.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can't. It is. It's. I remember going back to the surface and looking down and being like, well, okay, But I think that's also too. There's also a flip side to that. I think that there is, and we've all known people, done shallow water blackout. And I think
100%.
It's that element of like pushing yourself further and further and further and further and further. And at what point is it enough? At what point do you really need to hunt? And at what point, is it really at a, like, are you using a watch? Are you watching your surface time? Because that's, when I sometimes go out with people who are younger or guys who are younger who have less experience, and they're like, they want to go out and let's say shoot their first pelagic fish or something else. I mean, one of the things I actually talked to them about is keep your ratios, because it's like, it's great if you can dive to 100 feet, but it's not so great if you dive to 100 feet and then you see a fish below you and you drop back down and then you don't come back up again.
100%. 100%.
So I think that's a little bit of a, it's a
wisdom.
It's kind of safety concern.
I think for me, like when I was out on that dive crew, like I felt like all of us were diving pretty comfortably within the ranges we should have been diving. I was just physically having one of those days and just in that place at the moment where I'm not where I want to be, And I didn't push myself. I just went with what I had for the day. I'll be honest, I didn't enjoy it as much as I would have if my ability was going a bit better. But I tried to just enjoy it for what it was. And I loved being out on the water. I shot a fish. I had fun. And I was with some guys that I really liked. And so I just enjoyed it for what it was. But it made me want to get back in the pool and do some training.
See, and there you go. And that does help. And to your point, yes, it does. You can, that whole competitive, that whole thing in the back of your head is like, I should be doing better. I should have been like, training harder. I should be, doing X, Y, and Z, and all kinds of things. And sometimes I have to stop myself and be like, okay, like, if I've shot one or two yellowtail over a weekend, I'm like, stop and be like, okay, it's gratitude. Like, okay, like, so you just missed like, a 38-pound one, but you know what? Be happy for the two that you just caught. And you really have to kind of mentally check yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, you do.
So
it's good.
Yeah.
It's a good, honest conversation to have, I think. Upgrading to composite or carbon fiber spearfishing fins is a huge step in your spearfishing journey, and you want to make a smart investment. So I'm going to suggest investing your moolah in penetrator fins. These fins have got a long-lasting performance. They've got a warranty that outperforms anything else in the industry. Check them out at penetratorfins.com. Their before and after sales service is absolutely phenomenal. These fins are being worn by champions all over the world. Check them out at penetratorfins.com. For a limited time only, use the code NoobSpearo to save $25 on any purchase of composite or carbon fiber fins. Check them out, penetratorfins.com. handmade spear guns from the USA. Killshotspearguns.com have made rugged, functional, simple spear guns utilizing the best components. Check them out at killshotspearguns.com. Save $30 on any timber spear gun. Use the code NOOB. Visit killshotspearguns.com. Moving back, funny stuff. We've just talked about my diving ability. That was pretty funny. But what about funny stuff out spearing? Have you got a good funny story?
Oh, trying to think in terms of funny stories.
Generally, I always try and get a poo story out of my guests, but you're a lady, so I don't know if you'd be comfortable sharing a terrible poo story.
Well, funny story would be, well, there's funny story on land, but funny story in the water. Because we also too being a woman and diving with like a crew of guys on the boat. I mean, there's always funny things there. Yeah. But getting on and off your wetsuit and different things like that. But no, I think just being in the water and I just had like silly things like where you go down and I can remember being out and I was going after like this really big Dorado and it was like a gear check and I don't know why I didn't even notice that my entire float line came undone to my gun and it was like half a mile behind me, because I was swimming from the beach, Oh,
wow.
Silly things like that. But, I'm just trying to think what else. I mean, I think, we've done drift diving. Funny story, drift diving. I'm drift diving with my husband and he put me in charge of the boat and I realized that the boat was, I was in charge of the boat and he was in the water and I didn't realize that the boat drifted faster with the wind than I was thinking he was the other direction. And so 4 hours later after and everyone like came and I was calling, Mayday, Mayday. He apparently like dropped his weight belt. So the yellowtail was circling him. He watched like the outriggers of the boat go like down as I kept floating down and he was trying, and the current was coming off the shore. So, eventually when I saw the rescue divers come in the dark, it wasn't so funny, but it was funny later because then, get on the boat and he wanted a sandwich. But,
Any lessons learned from that funny one?
Yeah, don't put your dog, don't give somebody but if you're going to be like drift diving or do something, make sure you go through like the basics of what, how much is the wind blowing? Where am I going to be? He didn't even have like a float. He had like a carrot.
Oh, wow.
So I completely lost sight of him as the sun was dropping. But yeah, that was actually one of our first dates. And I got on, I called my son and I called him and I said, I'm dating this guy. I really like him. And I think he's dead.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, I think that and just, I'm trying to think. The other thing, like I actually really recently, I just shot a rooster and in Mexico. Okay, because roosters, quote unquote, a lot of times people don't know like why would you shoot a rooster because they're like catch and release and they're game fish for but down in Mexico they actually do eat them and so a lot of the locals really like them. So I was coming back in and literally I was like thinking as I was swimming back in about Netflix and what was I going to watch the rest of the day because there was nothing really big and I hadn't shot anything. There was nothing on my float, and I see this rooster in close and I'm like okay, I'll shoot this guy and I'll go ahead and I'll hang on to him and I'll give him to the locals that live in our neighborhood and stuff and I had like no flipping idea because it was only 25-foot viz. It's only like 80. And this thing like started towing me around like there was no, I almost lost like all my gear, like literally like everything just took off, like more than a bluefin. Like I'm like, whoa, I grab my gun, I grab my float, and I'm like literally just hanging on for like dear life as this thing is just towing me around.
Wow.
It's like, I don't know when this is going to end. So yeah, it turned out to be almost a 56-pound, roosterfish, and I mean those things are just stronger than crap, man.
Yeah. Well, what do they taste like? Are they like an amberjack, or are they
No,
How do
no,
they
they're
eat 'em?
actually, for down in Mexico they call them sashimi, but they're kind of like a red meat, and a lot of a lot of Americans, a lot of different Europeans, different people, they really don't they don't really eat. They're kind of red and they're kind of really gamey.
Yeah, righto.
They're I personally don't like them. They make almost like a carne asada out of them. They
Okay.
spice them up and they turn them into stuff that they put in burritos, and they love them. Either that, or if they're brand like coming right out of the water, they'll sashimi them, eat them that way.
Okay. All right, cool.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I forgot to ask you earlier when we were talking about bluefin. Like, from my perspective, like I've never shot one as well, but I've watched spearos start to target them regularly down in southern Australia because that fishery was actually like severely depleted, and it's a real success story of good fishing management practices because now they're back in numbers, and spearos are regularly targeting them. And I think, like a lot of things, it's like you get better as you go, and a lot of these people are fairly inexperienced at shooting bluefin, and you don't really seem to care for your catch, like a bluefin catch, like you do a lot of other fish. Like bleeding just seems absolutely critical, but also how you treat that fish from the time it lands on the boat back to eating it. Like it seems to be a fish that almost requires dry aging or something else. Like even processing that fish seems to be different than a lot of other spearfishing catches. What's your experience with that?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, the minute, I mean, especially, the minute you get that thing on board is putting in it, like we keep dry ice on board and, extra, lots and lots of blocks of ice, and getting it completely packed in ice. For me, like if I'm going to take it back and I'm going to weigh it first, then you want it completely, frozen and completely packed until you can get it back to a place where you can then, to your point, process it properly. You can basically, get it cut and make sure it stays absolutely pristinely cold until you have it cut up, and then you can, vacuum seal it and usually for the most part we don't freeze ours, but when we get bluefin, I mean our goal really is to give it away literally within the first 48 to 72 hours at most.
Yeah.
And they've been showed there, like it's showed the minute it hits the deck.
I recently caught a fish and dry aged one for the very first time. So I learned about dry aging through Josh Nyland's book, which is called The Whole Fish Cookbook. But really, I think I watched a couple of YouTube videos and they put wheels on the car for me, if you like. And I really actually had a practical idea about how to do it. All I did was like I filleted the fish as normal. I didn't like scale it. It was just a fish with really a skin rather than scales. So I skinned it and just patted it dry, and then put it in some vacuum sealed bags, but with just covered in paper towels. And I dry aged this fish for 72 hours. I changed the paper towels out once during that time, and it was some of the best eating fish I've ever had. And I was wondering if you had mucked around with that technique at all, and maybe possibly tried it with the tuna.
No, I haven't, but you've inspired me now to look at some YouTube videos.
It's so good. It's like another level of fish. Like I can't even express how good it is, even with like fish that we like turn our noses up. I think dry aging, I think any fish maybe is the go, like honestly.
So how is it different when you're dry aging a fish versus like taking it and then cutting it and filleting it and then patting it dry and then putting it in? Because we always pat ours dry anyway, and then go ahead and put them in a a vacuum seal.
Well, I think you're doing the right thing with that anyway. I think that works good. But my understanding of it is anytime you introduce any moisture to a fish, whether you wash your fillets under fresh water or even if you do it in salt water, you're reintroducing moisture and therefore bacteria to that fish. And we've all been brought up with this idea that white meat, whether it's fish or chicken or pork or whatever, somehow deteriorates faster than all the other sorts of meat. But I think it's a false idea. It's like the only thing that makes those fish decompose and become inedible and develop the bacterial stuff that can make us sick, is if you leave moisture with it. So if you pat it dry and that's completely dry before you put it away, I think that allows it to age without the bacterial growth, and it goes through rigor mortis like completely, and then all of the adrenaline and all that sort of stuff completely leave the tissue, and then you're just left with pristine eating, relaxed tissue that's way better for eating. That's kind of my understanding of it. But
no, I have to try that.
I used it in a ceviche. It was just it was the bomb, and it wasn't even a good eating fish. It was so
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I think, and it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier. I mean, it's like, it's, and I think, people who don't understand spearfishing, I think, for those of us who have been doing this for, we're really serious about it. I mean, like, there's almost so much reverence that we have for the fish once we kill it, in terms of how we treat it and how we make sure that it gets prepared and how, it gets filleted and how it stays chilled. I mean, it really is. It's an art form, in terms of how to treat it well.
I think there's a bit of a maturity curve there too, though. And sometimes with spearos, it's because we have an abundant resource. I'm not saying all of us are guilty of it, but I have been guilty of it personally, and it's treating it more casually than we should. And I've found great joy. Like, I've got this cookbook coming out, 99 Speara Recipes. I don't know if you're aware of it, but I've really enjoyed seeing people's submissions and how much care and what they do with their fish. It's just expanding my horizons. And I think just because we have an abundance of catch, like it's fairly easy to fill our freezers, like if you get out and you're pretty good, like that's never the hassle. So it's almost like just treating it with reverence, learning how to look after it. And jeepers, like, it's making a difference to my mindset, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I wanted to wrap up.
So when's the cookbook coming out?
November 7th, it'll be on Kickstarter. So it should ship early 2022.
Okay, awesome.
So I think we've got 140 plus recipes from the spearfishing community, so it'll be pretty cool.
That would be very cool.
If you want to submit one, I'll let you do a late submission.
Okay, I would like that.
Cool. All right, let's head on out with a faster paced round of questions. It's Spearo Q&A. So, what is your single best spearfishing tip, and what is it, and how do you apply it to your spearfishing?
Well, there'll be two, but number one would be pink bands, for sure.
Love it.
And I really do mean it. I mean, people think it's a joke, but without a shadow of a doubt, I switched to pink bands. And if you think about it, lures and a lot of other things for Dorado and other things, they put bright pink things in the water, and they will come shooting straight at it, or it sparks their interest. So I've switched my guns to pink bands, and it's not because I'm a girl, but it's just to attract the fish and get a little more interest.
All right, cool. All right. Yeah. Well, girls wear pink and boys like girls, so it makes sense. Who has been the most?
I think it's funny because a couple of guys are like, they're like, oh, you have pink pants, and I'm like, okay, well, we're just gonna see, like, like what happens here, and pretty soon they're like, they'll buy like, I'll have like one pink band. No one's judging your manhood over how many bands you have. Trust me. A lot more things than you're going to judge your manhood than your bands on your spear gun.
I love talking with women about the pathetic ego traps that men are privy to at times, and I'm guilty of it, just like all the rest of us. Who has been the most influential person or people in your spearfishing?
Oh, I think I've got a circle of people. Definitely my husband, Rocky Rafkin. Jay Reif he actually helped design my blue water gun. Got to know him really, really well. His passion, all the stories, amazing. Johnny Warren, Maury, who makes Maury tips. Got to know the Reif daughters, like Julie Reif. She's actually quite a spearer herself, and then just really, just kind of, navigating, through a lot of, there's like a group of women that kind of like, we all kind of, share stories or message each other or talk to each other. There's a new and upcoming gal, Tracy Fry. She's young. She reminds me of myself, like, 30 years ago, literally. I mean, she's
Awesome.
and she's definitely going to be an up and coming star. And, of course, there's like Kelsey Albert and some other people. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
cool. Kelsey's awesome. If you had to start spearfishing all over again, what would you do differently?
I think definitely do freediving classes first. I would definitely start out with freediving. I would definitely get, to at least obviously level 1. And then I would really probably go for a level 2 as I started, beginning to learn the basics of spearfishing, so that I would have that much more ability. And there was just such a loss in that learning curve, and like what you were talking about, like in how to kick over and and how to drop down versus like driving yourself down, the silly things that I did for a long time.
It's all good. Last question, and then I want to find out where people can connect with you. Could you describe what the spearfishing experience means to you in one sentence?
It is my underwater world of solitude, peace, and serenity.
Ooh, I like it. That was good. All right, where can people come and find you? And yeah, are there some socials where people can come and connect with you, Lisa?
I have a Instagram. It's Lisa Christine without an E on the end. So LISA KRISTIN. It's the Icelandic spelling.
Okay.
And then it's 1262, my birthday. So 1962,
Okay.
December. So that's my Instagram. I have a Facebook as well that's attached to that. And those are pretty much my 2 social medias that I try to connect with everybody on. So
you may have inspired a couple of young people today. So hopefully people can reach out to you on the socials and say hello. Lisa, I've had an absolute ball. It's been great chatting with you, and I've really enjoyed hearing a bit about your spearfishing journey and yeah, just shooting the breeze. It's been great.
Thank you so much. It's been awesome. And to your point, I hope this just really, whether it's a girl or a guy, just inspires somebody to pick up the sport and don't just do comparisons, just do it a day at a time and try to make yourself better every day, because it is absolutely a blast.
Love it.
So thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it.
You see what I mean? Lisa is the quintessential badass and definitely frothing past 50. I hope you enjoyed today's interview. Reach out to her on social media. Thanks for joining me on the show today, Lisa. I had an absolute blast. Next week, we're off to Brian Fern in Hawaii. He is at Unko Learn You How on Instagram. It's UNKO Learn You, the letter, How. Check him out. He's a really cool guy, loves communicating and educating the spearfishing world, particularly the young guys in his area. It's a massive episode. I think we only just started touching the sides as well. Like, we're going to have to come back and interview Brian again. But Hawaii next week with Brian. I've got a whole bunch of cool episodes coming up in the next little bit, as well as some 99 Speara recipes interviews. If you love the show, as usual, go to patreon.com/NoobSpeara and think about supporting the show on an episode by episode basis. Join 48 other frothing patron legends who are powering this sucker. Anyway, that's it for me this week. Shrek over and out. Thank you for listening. Love these reviews. Keep it coming. I'm out. Support for the Noob Speara podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming champions of the world. Manscaped offer precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped just launched their 4th generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0, all across Australia and New Zealand. You heard that right, the 4.0. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off, free worldwide shipping with the code NoobSpearo in one word, NoobSpearo one word, at manscaped.com. Long-time sponsor, partner, and supporter of the Noob Speara podcast, Adreno.com.au has been with us for more than 100 episodes. Adreno.com.au is a huge range of equipment, From the latest in spear gun technology to the odds and ends that you need, like bungees, booties, and budgie smugglers. Go online to adreno.com.au to read good, honest reviews and to take advantage of Australia-wide flat rate shipping and a no-hassles returns policy. Don't forget to take advantage of the Noob Spearo discount code and save $20 on every purchase over $200. adreno.com.au. Recently, I brought some new equipment online at today's show sponsor, neptonics.com, and I was super impressed by the quality of the packaging and the before and after sales support. These guys don't muck around. They make awesome, tough, dependable equipment, and their service matches the quality of the equipment they sell. Visit neptonics.com, use the code at NOOB10 to save 10% on anything and everything store-wide. If you're shopping in the USA and you spend more than $99, you get free shipping at neptonics.com.